Yes, welcome back to the Flogsville podcast for season 2023. We're back. We're here. Round one is done and dusted. Joining me, we've got coach of the Rabbitohs, Daniel. Welcome, mate.
Thank you, Scott, and it's fantastic to be here, particularly after a loss, as has always been noted over the years. Some people questioning my attendance after a loss, but we're here, 0-1, but it's fantastic to be here.
Welcome, mate. It is great to have you on. And of course, we've got to introduce Mr. 100. It's the coach of the Guns N' Roses. He's here. Ben, welcome, mate.
Thank you, mate. Yes, pleasure to be back for another season. Things are good. Footy's back, quarter up, Crows are shit. So we love that. And even the Saints got to win for Rabsy. So even though the Rabbitohs lost, I think he's still with that situation. So good to be back.
Great to be back, mate. And plenty of positives to take out of the round despite injuries and all sorts of things happening, which we'll get into, boys. Let's kick it off with our pick of the week. It was a bit of a weird round, and we'll sort of mention that some weird matchups, lots of high scores, lots of low scores. But it was the Burtons, a man Brad, the coach there, who always starts the seasons well. It just happens that way. Boys, looking at his side, pretty solid all round. I think the Clayton Oliver pick as captain, as his M1 was really stood out to me. What else about his side stood out for you guys?
I think, going with Jared Ritson and Bruck was an inspired selection. Round one, obviously a nice matchup to start with. But yeah, as you mentioned, Scotty, Brad's done this before. He started seasons hot before, and he's done it again. So by the look of his team, he's got nothing urgent in terms of no forced trades this week. So he's made a really nice start.
Yeah, I think totally nailed it there. That Brad has always been a pretty consistent starter, and I think he's obviously got some names there that most teams have probably got, but some ones that probably stand out a little bit more. Going with Nick Dacos, which is not necessarily the most popular selection, but definitely pulled through. Will Day has appeared in some other teams and was a really solid selection, and then Tom Green in the midfield as well, which some coaches went with, pulling out a 1-2-8. Probably surpassing some expectations. But yeah, Jared Witts in the ruck was a huge 137. Has really pulled him across the line there.
Fantastic work, boys. Great analysis. Straight back into it after however months layoff. We're off with a bang. We don't get too much wrong on this podcast, and I think Brad has certainly set himself up with a nice structure there. Tanner Bruin, I thought he was really good Friday night. He was just a bit of a victim of the Tom Stewart injury when Parfitt came on. Got pushed out of the midfield rotation. So I think he'll be fine this week. And in terms of his bench, got some good names there. We had some good performances from Pedler especially, and even Alwyn Davey showed a bit. So the only one there is Chandler, but I'm sure we'll talk more about him as we go. We go from such a high, boys, and then we have to come crashing back down with the spud of the week. And unfortunately, boys, it was a familiar face in Team Golden Child, not by much, but Team GC spudding it up this week with an 1844. Just having a look at his side, boys. What went wrong? Having not looked at it before, that's how good our preparation is. Rory Laird, captain, would that be? Oh, no, he's just got Rory Laird. Okay. Talk us through it, boys. Liam Jones, 7. That's a bit unlucky, but anything else catch your eye?
Yeah, well, I think you nailed it, Scotty, that, some things do start very similar each year. And this does seem to be something that's been a common trend for, a decade of Team GC starting with a rough start. So, yeah, Liam Jones, as you noted, obviously quite unlucky with a 7. He's got some solid for that side. And I think, as you said, there's not a huge difference between the sides at the moment, but probably some blokes like Callum Mills not quite getting it done for him. And obviously Rory Laird, which affected some coaches. But some interesting picks. Oscar Baker with a 55 in the mid is definitely an interesting one. And then the one that really stands out to me is big Harris Andrews in the back line. I don't know what you're thinking, Ben. I'm not sure what Team GC are thinking that Harris Andrews is going to pull through for him, but it seems a very interesting selection.
think interesting is being very nice there, Rabs. He's had how many years in the system and has never showed a fantasy game. So, there has been some rumours in the off season that the Golden Childs have recruited an assistant coach. So potentially that's been their selection policy, but clearly it's not a winning one. So I really need to rethink that one. And also having two players not play in the first round when you can select literally one is really cause for concern in the cash generation side of things. So as you mentioned, Rabs, a bit of a slow start for Zach, which is unfortunate the way he finished last year. He really came home strong. So hopefully he can turn around quickly and get back off the bottom, I guess.
Yeah, again, outstanding, boys. Just the same mistakes. We don't mind people making mistakes, but if you keep doing the same thing, it's insanity. So by starting these rooks that don't play, frustrating times at Team GC, and a bit of price order wouldn't go astray. Also, let's move on, boys, to our first matchup. We've got McRae, one of a revelation really since he's joined the league, getting a nice win up against the Keys. New profile picture for the Keys. I love that. But let's talk through this first matchup, boys. Sam getting a win, and once again showing that he's a top 8 side once again.
Yeah, similar to Brad. Really, he's come on. The start of the season's quite strong recently, especially last year for Sam. I think the big one here is the unique of Jake with Tom Stewart going down on the Friday. But yes, by Josh Kelly being the captain for Sam on the other side. So a bit of injury, unluckiness, I guess, on both sides. But really tight matchup. And I think on Sam's side, having Brayshaw to bring it home for him was a nice touch. So he's looking ominous. But on Jake's side of things, he's obviously Clayton Oliver as captain, a nice selection there. So it looks like he's got a nice to build off this year.
Yeah, I think Sam looking really strong again. I know obviously a small sample size, but you look through that team and it looks pretty well balanced. Producing a score over 2,000 in round one with a captain going sub 100 and another bloke going 32 is obviously a pretty positive sign for him. And yeah, Jake obviously getting quite a few things right. Tom Stewart was unfortunate. Probably looks like he's missed out a little bit with some of his rookies, which happened for quite a few teams of just having the wrong rookies on field with that limited lead-in, I guess, to the season. But, not far off, though, for Jake, so pretty even match.
No, very good, boys. Just Sam looking structure-wise, I think that Will Ashcroft, Cam McKenzie, rather than the 3 rookies in the midfield, I think that was after we saw on the weekend, I think that third rookie spot in the midfield with Hollins didn't really work. So I think that'll hold him in really good stead. And Warple and Callahan, the 2 mid-prices there, going really well. And for Jake, look, he's got some good rooks on the bench. He's got Cam McKenzie there. Get him on field. He's got some definite options there, but I'm liking Jake's a few of his pods that we talked about. Took Miller's an interesting one as well, but he came back and didn't look like slowing down. So some good signs for both of these teams. Let's move on, boys, to my God, your Liberatore getting a fantastic result. His squad when they got released really caught my eye because I think he's nailed it. Because as we'll see, boys. He had a Liam Jones 7 on field. Brett, couple-time winner. We know what he does. So just with the 1933, a little bit unlucky with Rory Laird captain. That's what's probably cost him this matchup. And even Isaac Cumming, I love the pick, but he just didn't perform on the day. Talk us through this one, boys.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, Scotty, in terms of a pretty lateral sort of team from Hugh, to be honest, compared to some other sides that we've seen, but it's really worked for him. The one that stands out for me is Wilf Setterfield, which I don't know what his percentage ownership would be, but I don't think it would be that high. But 122, he was up there pretty much from the start to the finish of that game for Essendon. So hopefully something that's going to work out well for him. But again, another team that just looks really well balanced. Gone with some of these mid-ish prices like Horn Francis with another one that was very successful. And obviously, copying the 7 and going above 2,100 is a huge result. In the crouching line sort of side, I think clearly there's a lot more upside though. As we've said with Laird, as captain, definitely capable of a lot more. So I don't think it's panic stations for them by any stretch of the imagination.
I think just touching, on the Liberatores, a big off season. I think at that franchise, lots of research and lots of off-field activities. Making the move from Seacliff down to McLaren Vale during the off season has really nailed his focus, I think. So you mentioned Liam Jones. Myself and Hugh have had some conversations last few weeks, and he's been really keen on Liam Jones. The jury's out, I think, but he went down injured on 7. That was 3 minutes before half time. So I don't think he was on track for a significant score anyway. But you're right, Rabs. Apart from that, this foundation's really solid and only has Kelly to deal with this week. So I think, for Brett, he's gone really, really heavy with the premium midfielders there and quite light on him forward. So as it's a bit of a different year this year. Quite a lot of the value guys are in the forward line, it seems. So he's got a really different route. But as we always know, he tends to pull it together. So one to watch. Certainly not one I thought would be down the bottom though.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, Will Day paying off similar structure to Brad in terms of, except for Liam Jones, of course. But Luke Davis-Uniacke as well was very good for Hugh. Love that unique pick. Another one who's a little bit different that a few coaches have gone with. So good signs for both teams, I think, to take away. I think Laird's going to be fine. He'll bounce back. It was a very hot game. Watching that game as well. Very open sort of game, not his sort of go-to. And I think having Sloan back as well might just have a bit of an impact on Rory Laird, but he's going to bounce back this week. No dramas at all. All right, Ben, your boys, the Guns N' Roses, despite Tom Stewart going down, you managed to score 20-33. So some real positives to take away from that, mate. Talk us through your matchup up against the Glen Mountain Fan Club, Shawnee Hill.
Thank you, mate. Yeah, it's good to look at this matchup for the first time because I'll be honest, exactly the weekend. And by the looks of it, he had a lot of players in that last game in the Freo and St Kilda department. Again, Liam Jones being a unique, and Tom Sparrow. I didn't realise he was an option this year, but Hugh McCluggage as well, being quite unique, not quite dealing the heat with the Port Adelaide midfield on the weekend, which is positive ones all around there, I think. So nice start. Both have Tom Stewart, so we both have that to deal with, and we want to move on. I think the other thing from Yuli's side is having Tim Taranto as a straight captain on my screen anyway, so no sort of loop opportunities or anything like that, but it didn't matter because of the score he received. So I'm sure he'll be fine. Yuli?
Always one for lateral picks, as we discussed earlier, and I think McCluggage as a primo. Had a conversation with Sean last week, and he was very big on his love for McCluggage. Not sure he'd be saying the same this week. Adam Chera, pulled through a decent score for him, and Bytel, I think is injured this week, but got a good score at least for him. But not too far off really for Sean. Like Liam Jones pulls through something half decent, and McCluggage goes at a normal 100, and it's probably a closer game. But not to beat him.
No, very good, boys. All I'll add is just structure again, Ben. I think in that midfield, by not paying up too much for these big boys and going the mid prices all really kicking off quite nicely for you was outstanding. And just a couple of notes. The Port Brisbane game was quite strange just to see Brisbane not really touch the ball. Dunks and Lockie Neal, they just didn't get their hands on it at all. And I think that was a lot to do with what Port were able to do after half time. And then Rabs, the St Kilda Fremantle game was very almost soccer-esque in terms of St Kilda's injury list and the way that the forward line is working. They just sort of sat off Fremantle and just let them chip around. We don't care about that. And then we'll hit you on the counter attack. It was very much Ross the Boss in full coach mode. It was quite fascinating to see. So those Freo boys with some inflated numbers, that's for sure. Yeah, quite a bizarre quite a bizarre. I only watched the first half, but it was interesting watching, that's for sure. All right, boys. Shall we move on to the B Sharps coming up against Total Eclipse of the Heart? And I've got to say, he was disappointing year last year, but his side is looking good and came away with the win, boys.
Yeah, I think obviously a much more positive start for Heels compared to last year. He has done. I'm a little bit confused though about what I'm seeing, because it does appear as though he's tried to sort of go through the loophole route with Taranto, but then he's also got I don't even know how you say that, Sin Cotter from Carlton on field with a red dot next to him. So bit of an oversight there, but yeah, he's pumped out a pretty good score, and that's with Laird with the 57, as we've mentioned with a lot of other teams. So much more positive start for Total Eclipse of the Heart compared to last year. In terms of the B Sharps, dealing with Tom Stewart like a number of teams are. Tom Mitchell, bit of an interesting pick. Haven't seen him float through too many sides. And with that ruck combination of Darcy Cameron and Ryan Marshall, which probably just didn't quite get it done on the weekend, will be an interesting one to monitor.
Yeah, not much more to add there. I think the Tom Stewart injury only going down by 95 points there for the Dogs. So I dare say if he played out a full game, that would have been a really tight matchup. But yeah, as you say, Rabs, a really positive start for Hills, considering the tour that he experienced in 2022. So it's good to see the Crips back with a bang.
Yeah, like both forward lines for both of these sides, going to 5 big dogs, and then Harry Sheasel, the +6 maestro back there as F6, looks really strong, boys. So liking their forward line, and even the midfield boys, as we've mentioned earlier, you know, your Tom Greens, Finn Callaghan's and Warple really showing up first round. So some good signs for both these teams. I think Tommy Stewart is, an issue for Dale, but moving forward, so some good signs for those two coaches. All right, let's move on, Rabs and Ben. We're going to talk about our matchup, Rabs, which was a bit of a slugfest in the end. We both struggled to get to 2,000, which was a little bit disappointing. But the Tom Stewart injury for me, managing to get a win despite that was nice. But the news of Josh Kelly getting concussed at the start of the fourth quarter when he was going really well was most disappointing for me. You know, he was one of my favourite picks, I think, and really looked to have that role and have the scoring potential. So that was really disappointing. On your side of things, mate, what did you see for your boys? Rory Laird stands out, doesn't he?
Yeah, obviously hard to sort of keep track of the games throughout the weekend because we weren't able to update it. But I thought going out of it that Laird may have cost me, and it probably did, really. Obviously, Tom Stewart had a fair impact on your side. But, Laird, if he'd sort of been able to pump out 100, I probably would have crept across the line, given the Stewart injury. Marshall and Cameron, Cameron was always going to be a bit risky and didn't quite get it done. And so it's a bit of an interesting one. I probably was one of those people that spent up a little bit in the midfield, just with the aim of trying to pick up a few wins early in the year while generating some cash, and obviously fell at the first hurdle, which is not ideal. But I think on your side though, Scotty, Davies, Uniac and Green, and then also Sheed sort of doing a serviceable job would definitely be pleasing.
Yeah, Dom Sheed, when I checked the score at halftime, I wasn't too pleased, but I think he'll only get better. And with forced trades this week, I think it's maybe a blessing in disguise. Give him another run at home against the Giants and see how he goes. And then after that, I wouldn't mind having a look at a Warple up against Sydney to see if he can continue his good form. So it might be a bit of a blessing. Bontempelli was on fire, and I was quite excited heading home from the Port game on the train, seeing his score. But I was sort of tossing up between him and Jack McRae, and my hatred for Jack McRae is well known on this podcast. So I had to go with the Bont because you've got to support these boys. And I think that's the best thing. One of the best things about fantasy is having those guys that you root for. And I was tossing up between either, and I just had to go the Bont. But Tom Stewart, unfortunate. We can blame Elliot Yeo for that one. And let's move on, boys, to our next matchup. We've got a couple to go here. We've got the Smiths Crips with a nice win. We've talked about Team GC, boys. Let's talk about the Crips. 1979, Let's have a look as we load here. Any Rory Laird action? Oh, we've got the 10-minute warning too. We're going to whiz through these. Yeah, Rory Laird is captain, boys. That's it, isn't it?
That is it. This could have been a lot bigger because Cherry bombs in his R2 as well for Liam.
Ooh.
So a bit to fix, unfortunately, with Cherry looking like a nice selection, dominating the first quarter and then going down. And as Serge said in the chat, he's no longer with us, I think, Big Tristan. So one to notice here is Liam's backline. I think a lot of coaches went light. He went really deep with 3 really solid picks and then Will Day at D4. So not relying on a dodgy D6, which a lot of other teams are doing. And I think that strategy might be really smart early in the year. So despite not cracking 2,000, I think there's some really nice signs for the Crippers, and we know he's the pedigree that he has.
Yeah, totally agree. I reckon Liam, on the face of it, has got probably one of the better balanced teams. When you look through, there's not a lot of weaknesses there, and yeah, a huge amount of upside really when you look at his captain choice, and obviously the issues are too. So I think his side is going to be pretty strong first half of this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't even mind the look of Filippo on Sunday. I was keen to have a look at him, watching him on the game. Had that thirst for the ball, which was good, but just the Saints, I think the way they set up against Fremantle, hopefully that changes this week against the Bulldogs, even though they got the result. I think, him at F6 won't be as bad as probably what we thought, hopefully. He just looked like he wanted the ball in his hands a bit more. So I can see him sort of averaging that 55-60, which is not too bad back there. All right, let's go. King Kunta getting a nice win, boys, up against Phenomenal. A disappointing round for Tom. This is a familiar story, though. Tom is a notorious slow starter. We've seen this before. Just a quick few words on this one, boys.
Some really interesting selections on both sides here. Hunter Clark stands out for Fenno. At D3 as well, Hunter Clark, which didn't quite get the job done for him. Whitfield in the midfield as well, obviously encountered some trouble, which is not ideal. But for King Kunta, the lizard just slithering around in the back line, producing 92. And some really interesting picks: Mason Wood, Matthew Kennedy, Tom Mitchell. I could go on, but enough. Sean Darcy, my God. Enough to get across the line, though. So good result for King Kunta.
Yeah. John Newcomb as well. I don't think you mentioned their Rabs, but some really, lateral picks, as you would say. I think for Tom, though, Scott, you touched on it. This is a common theme, unfortunately, for he was the second lowest scorer this week, which should put a pep in his step up there in Darwin. I know he's coming back to Adelaide, but he might need to get a wriggle on before he comes back, because season could be over by the time he comes back. So. But no, I think with his side, very, very old school in terms of paying up for those big midfielders and going the rookie. Obviously, round one, it didn't quite deliver in that way. This week, it could be the opposite. So, and we know how serious Tom takes it, and how well he took finishing ninth last year, and I'm sure he'll be back.
Well said, mate. Well said. Let's have a quick look at Hoffleberry FC up against Burpin Burpins. We've spoken about the Burpins. They're flying. Hoffleberry FC, boys, good signs, I think, really good signs. He was active, really pumping up Pendles, and then obviously delivered the Tristan Cherry news into the chat. But some nice picks there. Rory Laird as his captain, though, just costing Serge, probably getting up towards that 2,000 mark. But defence looks solid. He's paid up there. And the forward line as well, pretty stock standard sort of structure there, and the two big boys up top. So some good signs for Serge, I think.
Yeah, I think a bit to work with, to be honest. As you mentioned, Scotty, it's not all doom and gloom, even though he's under the 1,900 mark, a different skipper. And it could have been a lot different. Not that he would have got the win, but I think him and Dan Houston and Scott Pendlebury, they seem to keep amongst the Hoffleberry franchise each year. So I think it might be time to move some folks on, despite Scott scoring 118 and being one of his top scorers. So he's got a bit to work with, and hopefully he can respond from last year's disappointing campaign.
Totally agree.
Beautiful. All right, boys, we've got 4 minutes here. We're going to race through just some real quick fire predictions for this round. Match of the round, potentially, boys. McRae up against the Liberatores. I'm liking Hughes' team, as we've mentioned before. What do you guys think?
All right. I think this will be a real nail biter, to be honest. Josh Kelly for both teams is so how they deal with that will sort of determine how this goes, I think. But I think Hugh will continue his strong start.
I reckon it'll be very tight. I might just lean towards McRae's just because I think they've got a lot of upside still capable within them compared to their round one performance. So I'm not convinced blokes like Setterfield and Davies Uniac can quite go to that level again in round two.
Fair call, boys. All right, the keys, Glen Menton Fan Club, predictions, Ben and Rabs, go.
Keys for me.
There is a lot of uniques, which is extraordinary considering. It's I think the keys as well. Both have Tom Stewart, so good with that. But yeah, the keys.
Keys, beautiful. Crouching Lions up against Total Eclipse of the Heart, boys. Will it be Brett bouncing back, or could we see Hills going 2-0?
I think we could see the Crips go 2-0, which would be a big shock. I think the Crouching Lions are a little bit behind the 8 ball this year. But I'll give the Crips the tick of approval.
Yeah, same for me. I reckon it'll be very tight, but I reckon Total Crips of the Heart might just sneak home in that one.
Oh, very nice. And then, of course, you boys are playing each other, so we'll definitely review how that goes next week, so we can sort of skip over that one. Enjoy that matchup, boys. The B Sharps up against Team GC. We've got to go the B Sharps, don't we?
Yep, definitely.
Yes.
All right. My boys are up against King Kunta. It's going to be a big matchup. 2 force trades. We'll see what we can do. But we'll skip over that one. Smith's Crips up against Hoppleberry FC. Like this matchup, boys. What do we see happening here?
Smith's Crips for me, I think, as I said before, Surge side looks solid, but I think Smith's Crips are going to be one of the top sides early on. Just looks a very well-balanced team.
Yeah, Crips for me, having Doherty as a unique vice captain as well could be huge for Lamb to start the round. So I think he's got too many stronger captaincy options. We'll get the job done.
Excellent, boys. And then our last matchup, huge. We've got Phenomenal up against the Burtons. Last week's pig. Can Phenomenal bounce back, boys, or is it more of the same for the Burpens?
Yeah, I think the Burpens will keep rolling. They're looking at this matchup. Some really high ceiling players in Goulden and Bailey Smith and the like. We'll go with Brad.
Yeah, I agree. I think Fenno's only chance in this one is the big boys going real big, like Laird and Steele, even Dawson potentially. But I just can't see that happening enough. I think Brad will be too strong.
There you go, boys. Well, that is the end of the Flogsville podcast. We've got a minute or so left, which is fantastic timing. We had to scramble there towards the end, but we got it done. We'll get this one up hopefully this evening, if not tomorrow, in the group chat. And enjoy the round of footy, boys. All the best. Hopefully less injuries this week for us, boys.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, hey. All right. We'll hit the end of the record. See you next week.